Welcome to the Getting High on Leadership series featuring Paul Karasik. Paul is one of America's top management consultants helping leaders succeed. He is the author of 9 books, including Sweet Persuasion and Brilliant Thoughts and Provocative Questions. His insights appear regularly in major publications, and he is one of the most sought-after executive coaches. Paul founded the American Seminar Leaders Association and the Psychedelic Institute of Los Angeles. He is a popular speaker at national conferences and has been on stages across all 50 states and internationally. Paul's work addresses the question, how can we transform conflict in business into collaboration? With decades of experience in management, leadership, and psychedelics, he brings a unique perspective on personal and societal growth. In this series, we'll be discussing his latest book, Getting High on Leadership, The Leader's Guide to Higher Consciousness. We'll be exploring the concepts, techniques, and mindset required to revolutionize leadership. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Getting High on Leadership series. My name is Sanchez, your host, and we're joined by Paul Karasik, author of Getting High on Leadership. We're running through the book here section by section, and today we're discussing the section called Starting a Revolution. You can find it on page 50 of the book if you're following along, or we'll make sure and display it here as well. How's it going today, Paul? We've got an important topic on the table on this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds pretty radical, the starting a revolution.
Indeed, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to find it now, as the reader has become entrenched in this idea of conscious leadership, and they've started on this kind of journey of self-reflection that you've talked about earlier in the book. And I think now starting to look at really how to share that, or how to kind of start spreading that good work they've been doing maybe internally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is about finding new solutions, this chapter. This is about something original happening. Most of the time, we think we're original, but we're really just a version of the past. I don't know if that makes sense. But it's just a twist on what already is. It really isn't something vibrantly different, right?
And you mentioned that being like a museum.
Yeah.
Is that the best? Is that kind of the best way to look at it? Like, if you are representing these ideas and experiences and thoughts of the past, these relics of your life, that's not always the best foot forward. That's not actually growing, right? It's kind of lingering and honoring the past, sure, but maybe living in it too much.
Yeah, I find my experience is most people, they just keep rehashing the same thing their whole life. Whatever that thing is, variations of it. In music, I see that a musician was turned down by the Beatles, let's say. Listened to Beatles music, loved Beatles music, wanted to emulate Beatles music. And the rest of their life, they just keep doing this kind of reflective Beatles music. It's really nothing original there. You see what I'm saying? It's like
after learning that that way of playing or that style of music, after that it's really just kind of enjoying it. You're just kind of performing and rehashing.
Rehashing. It's for the rest of their careers. And every so often you see certain types of musicians, certain types of performers that reinvent themselves.
Yes.
Wow. One that comes to mind, Madonna, love her, hate her, whatever. She's, I guess, 80s or 90s, whatever. But she would come out with a whole new look, a whole new energy, for that tour, for that album. And it really would be something dynamically different. Just saw that Bob Dylan movie, and he goes to reinvent himself in the movie, and of course people freak out. But it's truly a reinvention. He sounds different, and he's a musician, a performer that's done that many times. He came out with a country western album, hard blues album, grunge blues. He's done many recreations, and that's what we're asking the leader to do here, is to enter into the field of the unknown, in essence, and say, let's try something dynamically different.
Yeah, take that museum of life and all those experiences, what you know how to do, what you've seen, and create something new, right? Or take a new step rather than one that's been tread before.
Yeah, can you do something that's not that there's two elements. One, there's a lot of experience from the past that is useful, but
yes, which can't be completely discredited.
You can't discredit that. No, that's really valuable, but to look at it new. So the question becomes, how do we do that? And the way we do that is to question how whatever it is, to question it, how it's been done, question it. Why do we do it this way? Question it. To really come at it from a whole fresh, completely different point of view. And that gives you the opening for something new and fresh and revolutionary. Because when we talk about revolution, obviously we're not talking about a physical revolution. We're talking about a revolution in thinking, a revolution in implementation of leadership. And the secret is to say, why? I love that old story about daughters watching the mother make a pot roast, and she makes the pot roast up, and I don't know that much about pot roast, but you tie it up. I remember my mom used to tie it up with string, and then she'd put it in a pan, and the daughter was watching, and as the mom was preparing it, she cut off the two ends of the meatloaf and put it in the pan. And so the daughter said, "Why are you cutting off the ends of the meatloaf?" And she said, "Because that's the way Grandma always taught us how to make pot roast." So she went to the grandma and she said, "Grandma, how come you when you make pot roast, you always cut off the two ends before you put it in the pan?" And she said, "Because that's the way my mother did it." And so the great grandmom happened to be in the house. So she went to the great grandmom and said, "How come you cut off the two ends of it?" She was questioning, right? Of the pot roast. And the great grandmother said, "Because back in those days, my pan was too small."
that no one would know unless you ask those whys.
Point here is really to like, there's no sense in cutting off the ends of the thing. It was just, that's the way we always did it.
Right.
And when you look at leadership, that's what you see in so much. I mean, it's just all over the place. That's because that's the way we've always done it. Well, question that, question that. So, why are you cutting off the ends? You're throwing away good meat. Because back then the pan was too small, but it's not, it's not relevant today. And
yeah, I've seen some businesses suffer, for lack of better words, because they cling to processes or structure or communication methods that were established, a decade ago, and they're still trying to grease that machine up and keep it running.
Amazing.
When eventually you need to just throw it out and rebuild.
It's just, you gotta just. It's kind of like, I always find, like, when a computer goes bad or a laptop goes bad, don't try to fix it. Just throw the thing out.
Take it as a sign, huh?
Completely revolution. Like, I need a new. Don't get into fix, because then it leads to another thing breaks, and that type of thing.
Yeah. It's almost it's an odd thing, because humanity wants to cling to something that they're familiar with, So I see why the company structure can just like adhere to history, and we see like
Always.
societal traditions from centuries ago, and that we're still clinging to a millennia ago, that you can't really shake just with groups of people and the way that it works. But I think those groups do need the thinkers that are trying to question. Even if the group overall is still working the old process, someone needs to be trying to revolutionize that and look at what's next, or start trying to consider the better option. And then
Well, that's
when
the
you
job
find
of
that's
yeah.
when it's time to convince the rest of the group.
Well, that's the theme of the book, right? Consciousness. So the leader comes with higher consciousness, and the leader says, "Let's question everything. Let's question everything we've done in the past, and maybe some of it's right now, and maybe some of it's not. But
Yeah.
to change, if you're just going to keep building on what was done before, it's really boring, too. I think." As a leader, when you get known for being open, for questioning status quo, for exploring possibilities, I think people really like to follow you because it's fresh and it's alive, and it's not the same old thing. I mean, isn't life so much the same old thing? Whatever it is.
There can definitely be a routine to it.
So this idea of being open, of questioning every step of the way, is a dynamic ingredient to add into to approach leadership from. Like let's just say, why are we always doing it that way?
It's that kind of change, right? Looking at something that exists, and you're using those previous experiences, but also, as you mentioned, discarding those limits, the limits of the previous experience, or the limits of what you thought was possible, and taking that opportunity to potentially lead into the unknown, where, as we've talked about on earlier episodes, the unknown is where that inspiration and innovation lives. So to contact that, or to experience any of that, you need to take those steps. But could you give maybe an example of starting a revolution, in at least as far as what you mean to convey in this section? How could someone look at this, like just within their team at work, where they could lead a revolution, or within their family unit?
It's that willingness to question. Let's just say, let's take parenting. Is my role to give my son or daughter advice? Is that my role? Is that a valid role? Does that really work? It's an age-old concept, right? That a parent would give a son or daughter advice.
Right.
As a father, it's almost instinctual. You see your daughter walking off a cliff, and it's like, don't go. Like you say, hey, I got some advice for you. Don't step over that cliff.
Yeah.
And it's sort of counterintuitive almost that a father wouldn't give advice. But let's look at that. Let's pull back and look at that concept. Simple concept. Do we learn? Let's go deep in it for a second. Do we really learn when somebody tells us, or do we learn from our own experience? We can reflect on somebody said something, but to actually know something, to actually learn something, it's our own experience that's going to teach us and say, I don't want to go over that cliff again. That's the key to learning. You get a wrong answer, and then you get a right answer. So how much am I really helping my daughter if I tell them what to do? Are they really learning any lessons in life?
Right.
Are they really? Yeah. Are they really?
Even doing that with those kind of parenting actions, right? The revolution can be minor, just in how you're being in the evening with your kids.
Well, isn't that a revolution, though? You would never,
Indeed.
to never again give your daughter advice. That would be a revolution in parenting, right? And to really look at that, what is it really doing any good? To just be open to that. Is it when I told my daughter in the past something, did it have a positive effect? Let me just look at reality. Did it really work? Or was it just useless words? So being open to that idea to say, when would advice be good? Maybe in technical things, how do you do this? Or Pop, show me how to do that, or whatever the case may be. On a more technical level, that's totally valid. But to relieve her suffering, how effective am I at that? How really effective am I? And so that's what I'm talking about. And maybe you'll get to know, it's good to give advice to your children, and it helps them. Maybe you will get to that. I'm not trying to do this exercise to get to the solution of the specific example.
Yeah, it's more just that's how to find your way into this mindset, right?
To really question it. Am I
as you realize what you're doing?
Yeah, am I cutting off the ends of the meatloaf because that's the way we've always done it?
Right.
Like, right. Why are you cutting off the ends? Why are you giving advice to your children when, in fact, that I always feel it annoys it annoys the person. It doesn't have any positive effect. Yeah,
definitely giving solutions too quick is sure to be not appreciated the way you intend.
No, it's just criticism, and it's taken in all the wrong light, and it's taken personally, and many times they can't even hear the advice you're giving because they're working through hurt feelings or whatever the case, defensiveness, and that type of thing. So, let's just say, to be a revolutionary, to put a bow on this particular chapter, we have to be able to question. We have to be open to question. And go and do it as an exercise to your question, Rob. Almost take it completely to the extreme. Maybe we should never give advice to our children, right? Maybe maybe there's time.
Let's do a little thought experiment there, though. To figure out where are those edge cases.
Yeah, stretch it out and then bring it back. But the key to being revolutionary is to question everything. Almost take that polar opposite in the beginning. What if? And then revolution happens. That's not directly connected to the existing thought forms that were tend to be just rehashed over and over.
Hey, excellent, Paul. Thank you for the insight on this section. Folks, go out and question what you're doing within your leadership capacity, inspire questioning, and try some of these thought experiments with the things you have going on in your life and in your projects. Join us on the next episode as we continue this journey, and find a link to pick up the book below in the show notes. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Getting High on Leadership series. If you have any questions, you can comment below or send them in via email to paul@paulkarasik.com. Follow him on Instagram at PK_theconversation. Find out more at wholesalerinstitute.com and psychedelic-awakening.com. The Getting High on Leadership series is produced by Rob Sanchez and Apartment 113, which can be found at apartment113.com and followed on Instagram at APT_113.